Hello, my name is Catherine Higgins, and as your screen is showing you right now, my topic was texting and literacy. I really wanted to look at how the world feels texting is negatively impacting the ability of writing and literacy of the current generations, both collegiate and those in lower levels of academia. Interestingly enough, not a lot of sources prove that texting is having a negative impact on literacy. Quite the opposite, actually. There's a great deal that feel that texting has helped the literacy of today's generations, especially the ones that are just starting school at kindergarten level and throughout middle school and junior high and high school. This I find to be extremely interesting because when I was researching this, it was on my mind. So I would go and get into a conversation with someone and I'd ask them, do you think texting has a negative impact? And not one person said, no, it isn't. Every single one of them believed that texting has a negative impact on academia and on education, which I found to be extremely interesting. So, throughout my researching this topic, I found that, like I said earlier, it is a positive influence from most, well, the people who are researching it believe that it has a positive influence. But before I go into the examples of different people, different academia that believe the impact is positive, I'd like to give you some statistics on cell phones and on texting. I have a portion of history in my paper, which I'm not going to go into because you can just read that and it's a lot interesting and it'll save me a little bit of time. Statistics. It is estimated that 1/3 of the world has access to mobile phones. The BBC out of Britain reported that 5 billion text messages were sent in Britain in 2007 alone. This was much higher than previous years. For the first time, America sent more texts than made calls. One of my sources said that 156 billion texts were sent solely in the United States. This was over a 95% increase over the previous year's statistics, which really shows how popular texting is becoming as a mode of communication in both the US and in Britain. I found other sources that was talking about India and the Orient. There is so much information being sent via text. It's astounding. Though, one thing to keep in mind is that in the Orient, text messaging was a lot slower to catch on, simply because to text with Chinese characters or glyphs is much more difficult than the Latinized alphabet that other other languages use. So that's just an interesting side note to know about this this topic. But before you can really explore texting literacy and the impacts, you actually have to define literacy. Um, and in this case, I found there was a great wide range of how literacy is defined in academic circles. And the one I finally chose, it's more of a middle ground. It's not extreme in either direction. Some believe that only written text can be quantified under the heading literacy, while other people believe that media and visual and things along that line, things that are not quite written text, but still text nonetheless in the genre of English and rhetoric. So my definition came from Beverly Plester and Claire Wood, who did quite a lot of research in Britain. They define literacy as the ability to decode information in various orthographic formats, including digital media, to make and take meaning from it, and to encode information into those formats to communicate ideas to others. So basically, the ability to take meaning and put it into a text format, and I'm using text as in the written word in this case, and then being able to understand written word and get its meaning, which is actually quite important because in this case, texting can be such a mode of written word, and there is meaning encoded and decoded from such a medium. As for my literary sources that I have found, I'm going to first start off with Plester and Wood, the people that I borrowed my definition of literacy from. They did research on British preteens and their use of texting and their jargon. And they found that using the jargon of texting, which I'm going to call text speak, did not impede literary skills, but actually enhanced them. The preteens, they found they had more of an appreciation for words because the standard English that we use today has rules and it's fairly set in stone for what is and what is not, while text speak is new and it's ever changing and ever adapting to culture and to what people need it to be. That the British preteens have the ability of creativity. They're allowed to play around with words and come up with new anagrams or new ways of saying things. And as a direct result, these kids have more of an ability to write because they know they can play around with it. They have more confidence with their writing, and because of that, are stronger writers, which I found to be really, really neat. Plester and Wood really put an exclamation point on the creativity of texting and how teenagers and collegiates are finding pleasure in this creative process. So I think this is really a neat way of looking at the effect that texting is having on literacy. Another aspect of their research was looking at younger children that are first coming into school at kindergarten age or preschool ages. And they found that the material culture that we're living in today is actually enhancing their abilities even before they are really introduced to literacy and to writing. Because children are being given toys such as play computers, play cell phones, they have a greater ability of learning and they have a greater knowledge base when they first enter kindergarten or preschool. This has found to be very positive, especially because, for example, they found children who aren't even in kindergarten yet who have the ability of texting. They'll like pick up the phone and text their parents and ask them a question or something like that, and have the ability of communication through text before they even enter schools, which I think is a benefit to culture because children, are learning at a faster rate than they had before. Which segues me perfectly into my next example, and I think this will be my last looking at my time. A study was done out of Stanford University by a professor named Andrea Lunsford, who did the Stanford study of writing, where she did a huge study on writing of collegiates today. She collected 14,672 samples, and these samples ranged from formal college essays to written assignments in class to the Twitter or Facebook or MySpace postings that collegiates posted. Now, this is really interesting because she wanted to see the range of writing, the writing ability, and how students wrote in different settings. And Lunsford said that the students she looked at were really adept in identifying their audience and adjusting their prose to match that audience. If they were speaking in a more formal setting, their language would rise to the occasion, but it would also become chill, if you want me to use a vernacular word. And it would become like text speak, with the YOU for you isn't how they spell it. They spell it as you, or cuz for because, and things like that. She found that students were writing even more than previous generations. 38% of the college writing that was done by these students were actually outside of an academic setting. This is far more than the generations before, whom many of them didn't even write after they left high school, simply because they were in a job that didn't require it. They never again crafted a paragraph in the rest of their lives. And today, with this just surge of technology that allows massive interconnectivity of people around the world, there is a lot more writing going on, including text messaging. And she said this revolution of writing is one that is extraordinary and hasn't been seen since the Greek era of debate. She has a lot of information about internet and how it's affecting literacy, which fascinated me, and I really wanted to look at it more, but I had to resist and come back to my texting and literacy topic. But it also shows you that language just change, and the use of language changes. And so because of that, the mode of communication that is text speak has to be given some leeway, as it is new, as it is a way of changing language and changing communication. When it is looked at through the lens of straight standard English, then yes, you can say it is a degradation of that style. But in today's society, that is not something that we can do. We can't just keep a narrow lens. We grow and we change. And that is one of the big things that I found in my literary report, and I am completely fascinated with this topic, and I am really glad that I chose it. I hope you like this, and I hope you have a good day.